In the heart of Manhattan, where glass towers pierce the winter sky and ambition flows through every street like electricity, there are stories that unfold in the most unexpected ways. Stories of people whose paths were never meant to cross, yet destiny has a peculiar sense of humor. This is one of those stories. A story about power and humility, about assumptions and truth, about how a single moment can shatter everything you thought you knew about someone. Before we dive into this incredible journey, tell us in the comments, where are you watching this from? We love hearing from viewers around the world. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next compelling stories. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. The revolving doors of Al Mansour Tower spun relentlessly on that February morning, swallowing and spitting out men and women in expensive suits, their breath forming small clouds in the frigid New York air. The building stood like a monument to excess on Fifth Avenue, 73 floors of steel and ambition, its lobby adorned with Italian marble and gold fixtures that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Khalid Al-Mansour stepped out of his private elevator at exactly 7:45 a.m., as he did every morning. At 42, he carried himself with the practiced grace of someone born into wealth and power. His Tom Ford suit fit perfectly across his broad shoulders, tailored in London just 3 weeks prior. His dark hair, slightly graying at the temples, was styled impeccably. Everything about him spoke of control, precision, and absolute authority. His assistant, Jennifer, a sharp Yale graduate with perfect posture and an even more perfect ability to anticipate his needs, fell into step beside him immediately. "Good morning, Mr. Al-Mansour. Your 8 o'clock with the Shanghai delegation is confirmed. They've requested an interpreter, which I've arranged. Your 10:30 with—" "Cancel the interpreter," Khalid interrupted, his accent a smooth blend of Arabic inflection and British boarding school refinement. "I prefer to handle sensitive negotiations directly. Their English is sufficient." "Of course, sir. Also, the quarterly reports are ready for your review, and Mr. Richardson from Goldman Sachs has called twice already this morning." Khalid nodded without breaking stride as they moved through the executive floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Central Park, now covered in a thin layer of snow that sparkled under the weak morning sun. From up here, the people below looked like ants, insignificant and small, just as Khalid preferred to see the world. From above, in control, untouchable. He had built his empire from an already substantial foundation. His father, a Saudi oil magnate, had given him $50 million on his 25th birthday with simple instructions: double it or don't come home. Khalid had turned that $50 million into $5 billion in less than 2 decades. Real estate, technology investments, strategic acquisitions. He had a gift for seeing opportunities others missed and the ruthlessness to seize them without hesitation. But he also had something else, an absolute certainty in his own superiority. He believed, deeply and without question, that his success came from his brilliance, his education at Oxford, his natural superiority over ordinary people, and ordinary people included nearly everyone he encountered daily. His office occupied the entire 73rd floor. It was more than a workspace. It was a statement. The desk was custom-made from a single piece of zebra wood imported from Cameroon. Behind it hung an original Rothko that had cost him $8 million at auction. Everything in that room whispered the same message: I am above you. As Jennifer left to prepare for the morning meetings, Khalid stood by the window, coffee in hand, surveying his kingdom. The city stretched endlessly before him, millions of lives playing out below, none of them mattering to his reality. He checked his Patek Philippe watch, a limited edition that cost more than most people made in 5 years. Time was money, and he wasted neither. At 7:55, he heard the subtle sound of the service elevator opening in the small corridor behind his office. The cleaning staff. He barely registered their existence most days. They came early, before the important people arrived, and vanished like ghosts, leaving everything spotless, as it should be. But this morning, something was different. Maria Elena Reyes pushed her cleaning cart down the executive hallway with practiced efficiency. At 53, she had been cleaning office buildings in Manhattan for 27 years. Her hands, rough and calloused from decades of chemicals and hard work, moved with the kind of grace that comes from repetition. She wore the standard gray uniform of prestige cleaning services, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, her face showing the lines of a life that had known more struggle than comfort. She had immigrated from Honduras in 1997 with her daughter, Sophia, who was then just 6 years old. The journey had been difficult, dangerous even, but Maria had been driven by a mother's fierce determination to give her child a better life. In Tegucigalpa, Maria had been a teacher, respected in her community, with a university degree in linguistics. But in New York, her credentials meant nothing. Her accent marked her as foreign, her skin color marked her as other, and her immigration status, though now legal after years of struggle, had initially marked her as invisible. So she had cleaned office buildings, hotels, private homes. She had worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, sending Sophia to good schools, saving every penny, and Sophia had thrived. She was now a medical resident at Mount Sinai Hospital, brilliant and driven, everything Maria had dreamed she could be. But the cost had been high. Maria's dreams, her education, her identity as an intellectual, had been buried under years of scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans. Most days, she made peace with it. Her daughter's success was her success. But some days, when she saw the young executives, barely older than Sophia, treating her like she was invisible, or, worse, like she was stupid, something inside her ached. She entered the executive suite at precisely 8 a.m. as scheduled. The Al-Mansour floor was her most challenging assignment, not because it was particularly dirty. Wealthy people made surprisingly little mess, but because of the man himself. Khalid Al-Mansour had a reputation among the cleaning staff. He was demanding, critical, and had gotten 2 cleaners fired for minor infractions. A misplaced document, a coffee cup moved 3 inches from its original position. Maria had learned to be invisible around him. She moved silently, efficiently, never making eye contact, never speaking unless absolutely necessary. It was safer that way. She began in the outer offices, dusting, vacuuming, emptying trash bins. The space was beautiful, almost intimidatingly so. She had cleaned museums with art less expensive than what hung casually on these walls. It always struck her as obscene, this wealth. A single painting in this office could pay for 100 children to go to college in her hometown. But she kept such thoughts to herself. As she worked, she heard voices from Khalid's private office. He was on a conference call, his voice sharp and authoritative as he discussed numbers that made her head spin. Millions moved with a casual ease that made her think of how she struggled to pay for her own modest apartment in Queens, how she still sent money back home to her mother in Honduras. She was cleaning the conference room adjacent to his office when she noticed it. On the long mahogany table, surrounded by scattered papers and leather portfolios, sat a document, but this one was different. It was covered in Chinese characters, elegant and precise, the paper expensive and formal-looking. Next to it lay a pen and a legal pad, where Khalid had apparently been trying to work through the document, his notes scattered and crossed out, frustration evident in the heavy pen marks. Maria froze. She shouldn't look. It wasn't her business. She was here to clean, not to read confidential documents. But something about those characters called to her, awakened something in her that had been sleeping for years. She glanced toward Khalid's office. He was still on his call, his back to the conference room as he gestured at something on his computer screen. She looked back at the document. She recognized it immediately. It was a contract, formal and binding, written in Mandarin Chinese, and she could read every word. What the cleaning staff didn't know, what nobody in this building knew, was that Maria Elena Reyes spoke 6 languages fluently. Spanish and English, obviously, but also Portuguese, Italian, French, and Mandarin Chinese. In her former life, before immigration and survival had reduced her to invisible labor, she had been a professor of linguistics at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Honduras. She had specialized in East Asian languages, had spent 2 years in Beijing on a research fellowship, had published papers on linguistic patterns in Sino-Tibetan languages. But here, in this building, wearing this gray uniform, pushing this cart, she was just Maria, the cleaning lady. Nobody asked about her education. Nobody cared about her mind. They saw only her calloused hands and her accent. She was about to move on, to maintain her invisibility, when Khalid's voice exploded from his office. God damn it! The sound made her jump. She heard him slam something down, heard him speaking rapidly in Arabic, the words harsh and frustrated. Then, in English, presumably to someone on the phone, "No, I don't have a translation yet. The interpreter won't be here until tomorrow, and I need this deal closed today. The Shanghai investors are arriving in 2 hours, and if I can't verify these terms..." He cut himself off, the frustration palpable even through the wall. Maria should have left. Every instinct told her to finish cleaning and disappear. Getting involved with executives was dangerous, especially for someone like her. But she found herself staring at that document, at the complex legal language written in characters most Americans would see as meaningless symbols. She read the first paragraph, then the second. Her eyes widened. The conference room door suddenly swung open, and Khalid stood there, his phone still pressed to his ear, his face tight with stress. He barely glanced at her, his eyes moving past her as if she were part of the furniture. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, then ended the call. He strode to the table, grabbed the Chinese document, and stared at it with open frustration. "Useless," he muttered. "Absolutely useless." Maria's heart pounded. She gripped her cleaning cloth, preparing to excuse herself and leave. But the words came out before she could stop them. "It's a trap." The silence that followed was deafening. Khalid's head snapped up, his dark eyes finally focusing on her with laser intensity. For a long moment, he simply stared, as if unsure he had actually heard her speak. "Excuse me?" His voice was cold, imperial. Maria felt her mouth go dry. What had she done? She should apologize. She should leave. But she had already started. And looking at this man, this billionaire who thought himself untouchable, something rebellious stirred in her chest. "The contract," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's a trap. The terms you think you're negotiating aren't the actual terms in the Chinese version." Khalid's expression shifted from shock to something approaching anger. "You can read Chinese." "Yes." He laughed, but it was a harsh, disbelieving sound. "The cleaning lady reads Chinese." "Of course." His tone dripped with sarcasm. "Did you learn that between scrubbing toilets?" The words stung, but Maria had endured worse. She had been talked down to by men who couldn't speak a second language to save their lives, by people who assumed her uniform defined her intelligence. She held his gaze steadily. "I learned it at university," she said quietly, "in Beijing, where I spent 2 years on a research fellowship studying Sino-Tibetan linguistic patterns." Khalid's smirk faltered slightly. "You expect me to believe that a cleaning woman has a PhD in linguistics?" "I don't have a PhD," Maria corrected. "I have a master's degree. I was working on my doctorate when I had to leave Honduras, and I don't expect you to believe anything, Mr. Al-Mansour." "But that contract on your table, Clause 17, the one about profit distribution. In English, you probably negotiated for 40% of net profits, but in the Chinese version, it says 40% of gross profits after operational deductions, which they define in Clause 23. Those deductions include management fees, consulting fees, and administrative costs that they control completely. By their calculations, you'd be lucky to see 15% of actual profits." Khalid's face had gone very still. He looked down at the document, then back at her. That's impossible. My lawyer reviewed this." "Did your lawyer read the Chinese version?" "He had a summary translated." "A summary isn't the full contract. Clause 31 also gives them unilateral power to dissolve the partnership with 30 days' notice, keeping all assets acquired during the partnership. And Clause 42, the arbitration clause, it requires all disputes to be handled in Shanghai, under Chinese commercial law, with arbitrators selected by their board." Khalid set the document down slowly. His hands, Maria noticed, were trembling slightly. How can you possibly?" "Because I can read it," Maria said simply. "Every word, and whoever drafted this knew exactly what they were doing. This is designed to look like a standard partnership agreement in English, while giving them complete control in the binding Chinese version." For a long moment, Khalid said nothing. He stared at this woman in a gray cleaning uniform, this person he had walked past 1,000 times without truly seeing, and something in his world view began to crack. "Show me," he said finally. Maria hesitated. "Mr. Al-Mansour, I should really... Please." The words seemed to cost him something. "Show me what you're talking about." She set down her cleaning supplies and approached the table. Khalid moved to stand beside her, and she was acutely aware of the expensive cologne he wore, of the vast difference in their worlds. She pointed to the Chinese characters, her finger hovering just above the expensive paper. "Here," she said. "This character, kuchu, means to deduct or subtract. It appears 17 times in clauses you probably think are standard operational language. But each time, it's creating a loophole. And this phrase here, yu jiafang queding, means to be determined by Party A. That's them. They're building discretionary power into every financial clause." Khalid pulled out his phone and took a photo of the section she indicated, then another. His mind was racing. If what she was saying was true, he had been about to sign away a $300 million investment into a contract that would give him almost nothing in return. "The merger timeline," he said suddenly. "Clause 28. What does it actually say?" Maria scanned the document. "It says the merger will be completed within 6 months of signing, but it includes a provision, here, buried in the subclauses, that allows them to delay indefinitely if market conditions are unfavorable, which they alone define. Meanwhile, your capital would be locked in, inaccessible." "Son of a..." Khalid caught himself. He paced away, then back, his carefully constructed composure crumbling. 3 months. 3 months I've been negotiating this deal. My entire legal team. And a cleaning— He stopped himself, the word dying on his lips as he looked at her. A cleaning lady? Maria finished for him, a slight edge to her voice. Yes. Surprising what we might know, isn't it? Khalid had the grace to look ashamed. I apologize. I'm sorry. He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. I don't understand. If you have this education, this ability, why are you cleaning your office? Maria's smile was sad. Because my master's degree from Honduras isn't recognized here. Because it costs $15,000 to have my credentials evaluated and certified. And I don't have $15,000. Because I used every penny I had to put my daughter through school. Because I'm an immigrant with an accent. And most people never look past this uniform to consider that I might be anything more than what they assume. The words hung in the air between them. Khalid felt something uncomfortable twisting in his chest. A feeling he wasn't accustomed to. Shame. Your daughter, he said quietly. What does she do? She's a resident at Mount Sinai. Cardiothoracic surgery. Maria's voice softened with pride. She's brilliant. Everything I worked for. Khalid nodded slowly. He thought of his own daughter, Layla, 10 years old, attending the finest private school in Manhattan. He had never once worried about her future. The path ahead was clear, paved with wealth and privilege, but this woman had fought for every opportunity her daughter had received. The phone on the conference table rang, making them both jump. Khalid answered it. Yes, Jennifer. He listened for a moment. They're here, now. He checked his watch. They're an hour early. Tell them I need 30 minutes. Offer them coffee in the waiting area. He hung up and looked at Maria. The Shanghai delegation is here. I can't sign this contract, but I also can't let them know I discovered their deception without losing face, and potentially the entire opportunity. There might be a legitimate deal to be made, but not on these terms. Maria nodded. You need leverage. Yes. He looked at her with new respect. I need to know exactly what this contract says. Every deviation from what we negotiated, so I can negotiate from a position of knowledge, without revealing how I obtained that knowledge. That will take time. I have 28 minutes. Maria made a decision. Get me a laptop and a quiet space. I'll type up a complete analysis, flagging every problematic clause with the actual Chinese text and its real translation. Khalid didn't hesitate. Jennifer, he called out, moving to the door. His assistant appeared instantly. Clear the small conference room. Bring a laptop. And Maria here is not to be disturbed by anyone for any reason. She's consulting on a critical matter. Jennifer's eyes widened slightly at seeing the cleaning lady being treated like a high-level consultant, but she was too professional to comment. Of course, sir. Right away. 26 minutes later, Khalid stood in the main conference room facing 3 Chinese businessmen in impeccable suits. Mr. Zhang, the lead investor, smiled warmly as they exchanged pleasantries. Khalid's own smile never wavered, even as his mind raced through the document Maria had prepared for him. It was devastating. She had found 19 major discrepancies between the English summary and the Chinese contract, each one designed to give the Chinese investors complete control while minimizing Khalid's returns and protections. It was one of the most sophisticated corporate traps he had ever seen. Mr. Zhang, Khalid said smoothly, I've been reviewing our contract in detail. Wonderful work by your legal team. Thank you, Zhang replied through his interpreter. We're eager to move forward. If you're ready to sign, we can conclude our business today. Actually, Khalid said, I'd like to discuss a few clauses. For instance, Clause 17, the profit distribution structure. Zhang's smile didn't waver, but Khalid saw something flicker in his eyes. Caution. Of course. What questions do you have? I'd like to clarify the language around operational deductions. In fact, Khalid pulled out a printed copy of the Chinese contract. I'd like to discuss the Chinese version specifically, to ensure we're all understanding the same terms. The silence that followed was profound. Zhang's smile froze. His colleagues exchanged quick glances. The interpreter looked confused, unsure what was happening. You've reviewed the Chinese version? Zhang asked carefully. In perfect English. The interpreter was suddenly unnecessary. In detail, Khalid confirmed. Your English is excellent, Mr. Zhang. Perhaps we don't need the interpreter for this conversation. Zhang dismissed the interpreter with a wave. Once the man left, Zhang's entire demeanor changed. The warm, slightly bumbling businessman vanished, replaced by someone sharp and calculating. I see, Zhang said. And may I ask who translated the document for you? The interpreter we were told you hired isn't arriving until tomorrow. Khalid smiled. I have resources you weren't aware of. As it seems, you had resources I wasn't aware of. The question is, do we continue playing games? Or do we negotiate honestly? For a long moment, Zhang studied him. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. You're more formidable than we thought, Mr. Al-Mansour. Very well. What terms would you propose? The negotiation that followed was intense, honest, and ultimately successful. 3 hours later, They had hammered out a new agreement, one that was fair to both parties, written identically in both English and Chinese, with Maria quietly verifying every clause. The deal was actually better than Khalid had originally hoped for, built on mutual respect rather than deception. As Zhang and his colleagues left, the lead investor paused at the door. "Your translator," he said. "They're exceptionally skilled. We'd like to hire them for some of our American operations. May I have their contact information?" Khalid glanced toward the small conference room where Maria was gathering her things. "I'll ask if she's interested, but I have a feeling she already has a full-time position lined up." After the Chinese delegation departed, Khalid found Maria in the conference room. She had returned to her cleaning cart, was preparing to move to the next floor. The gray uniform was back in place, the invisible woman restored. "Maria," he said. She turned. "Wait. Please." She waited. Khalid realized he had no idea what to say. How do you thank someone for saving you from a catastrophic mistake? How do you apologize for years of not seeing someone who was right in front of you? "The contract worked," he said finally. "We have a new deal, a real one. You saved my company from a disaster that would have cost hundreds of millions. I'm glad," Maria said simply. "I want to hire you, full-time, as a consultant, a translator, whatever title you want. Name your salary." Maria smiled, but it was tinged with something like sadness. "That's generous, Mr. Al-Mansour, but I don't have the certifications to work as a professional translator in the United States. My credentials aren't recognized here." "Then we'll get them recognized. I'll pay for the evaluation, the certification process, whatever it takes. I have lawyers who specialize in this." "That's very kind, but—" "Maria," Khalid stepped closer. "Today you taught me something I should have learned a long time ago. I've spent my entire life believing my success came from being smarter than everyone else, better educated, more deserving. But the truth is, I've just been luckier in where I was born, who my father was, what opportunities were handed to me." His voice cracked slightly. "You're more educated than half my executive team. You speak 6 languages. You saw in minutes what my lawyers missed in months. And I've walked past you every day for— How long have you been cleaning this floor?" 2 years. 2 years, and I never once saw you." "Not really." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my HR director right now. We're going to start the process of getting your credentials recognized. And in the meantime, I'm hiring you as a special consultant. The pay will be consultant level. You'll have an office on this floor, and you'll never push a cleaning cart again, unless you choose to." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Al-Mansour." "Khalid, please." "Khalid, I'm 53 years old. I've been cleaning offices since I came to this country. It's been 27 years. Sometimes I forget I was ever anything else." "Then it's time to remember," Khalid said firmly. "It's time for everyone to see what I was too blind to see." 3 months later, the executive floor of Al-Mansour Tower looked much the same, but everything had changed. Maria Elena Reyes sat in her office, a bright space with a window view of the park, reviewing a contract for a potential acquisition in São Paulo. Her title was Senior Linguistic Consultant and Cultural Liaison, but in practice, she had become indispensable to the company's international operations. Her ability to not just translate languages but understand cultural nuances had already saved the company twice more from problematic deals. She wore a tailored suit now, her hair styled professionally, her hands, still calloused but healing, typing rapidly on a state-of-the-art computer. On her wall hung her framed credentials, her bachelor's degree from Honduras, her master's degree in linguistics, and now, freshly acquired, her official certification as a professional translator in New York State. Khalid had paid for the entire evaluation process and hired an immigration attorney who specialized in professional accreditation. Her salary was $200,000 a year, more than she had made in the previous 5 years' combined cleaning offices. But money wasn't the most important change. It was respect. It was being seen. It was watching her daughter Sophia's face when Maria told her she didn't have to clean offices anymore, that she was using her education again, that the sacrifice had been worth it. There was a knock on her door. Khalid entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Ethiopian blend," he said, handing her one. "From that place in Brooklyn you mentioned." "You remembered," Maria smiled. "I'm trying to pay attention now. To everyone, not just the people I thought mattered." He sat down across from her. "How's the São Paulo contract?" "Solid. No hidden clauses, though they're trying to lowball the valuation." "Your recommendation?" "Counter at 15% higher. They'll negotiate down to about 8% above their current offer, which is fair market value." Khalid nodded. "Done. Your instincts haven't been wrong yet." He paused. "Jennifer told me you've been mentoring some of the younger staff, teaching them basic Mandarin. A few expressed interest. I thought it might be valuable." "It is. Everything you do here is valuable." He met her eyes. "I need to tell you something. The cleaning staff. I've implemented new policies, better pay, benefits, English classes for anyone who wants them. And I've started actually talking to them, learning their names, asking about their lives. That's wonderful. It should have been standard practice. It wasn't. I was too busy thinking I was better than everyone. He shook his head. Last week, I found out that one of the night cleaning crew, Carlos, has a degree in engineering from Colombia. I've connected him with our engineering department. He starts next month. Maria felt tears prick her eyes. You're making a real difference. Because you showed me I needed to. Khalid stood. I have a board meeting. But tonight, I'm taking my daughter Layla to visit a community center in Queens. They help immigrant children with homework and language skills. I'm funding an expansion of their programs, and Layla is going to volunteer there twice a month. I want her to understand what real privilege looks like, and how we have a responsibility to use it for good. After he left, Maria sat quietly, looking out at the city. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, about the years of invisibility and struggle, about the moment she had chosen to speak up, risking everything, because staying silent had become more unbearable than the risk. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Mom, just finished a successful surgery. First time leading. Wish you could have been there. Love you. So proud of you. Maria smiled through her tears. She typed back. I'm proud of you too, mi amor. I was always there. In every choice you made. We did this together. She looked around her office, at the life she had rebuilt from invisible obscurity. But the real change wasn't in the office, or the salary, or the title. It was in being seen, in being recognized as fully human, with all the complexity and capability that entailed. And in knowing that somewhere in this city, there were others like her, people whose worth was invisible to those who never thought to look beyond uniforms and accents and assumptions. People who were brilliant and capable and waiting, as she had waited, for someone to finally see them. The Arab billionaire had been surprised by a cleaning lady who translated a text in Chinese, but the real surprise had been much deeper than language. It had been the discovery that wisdom and worth aren't determined by wealth or position, that brilliance can wear a gray uniform and speak with an accent, and that the people we overlook might be exactly the ones we need most. In a city of millions, in a tower of glass and steel, two people from completely different worlds had found a moment of genuine connection, and in that moment, both of their lives had changed forever. Because sometimes, the most valuable translation isn't between languages, it's between human beings, learning to see each other clearly for the very first time.